false connection. And it's not just social media. Have you guys done any research into screen time in general and
Well,
what that's doing to dopamine levels?
so that's the point. We don't call it problematic social media use. We actually coined it problematic internet usage.
Got it.
And for some people, it does feel like an addiction. By the way, they
Yeah.
cannot stop. And for most of us, putting away our phones is really a very good exercise. Um, I find myself, it's like a bad movie. You walk into a restaurant and a family is sitting at the table, and the children have headphones on, and they're watching, a cartoon, or they're watching, Netflix, and the parents are looking at their phones, and you feel like going over to them and saying, "Do you know who I am? Stop. This is bad parenting. 20 minutes, you should be able to figure out a way to connect to your kids. And if they're 2 or 3 and they're not big talkers, then let's get some paper out and let's color together while we wait for the food. Or let's figure out how to teach our kids, by the way, to have a conversation." And not every child is like Athena. Most children, by the way, need to be taught how to have a conversation. It's kind of like a tennis match. The ball has to go
Yeah.
back and forth. You teach your kids, why don't you ask three you questions?
Three you questions?
Yes, everyone loves to talk about themselves.
Ah,
Maria, where do you live? Where did you go to school? Do you have children? What's your favorite color? And they recognize that there's a reciprocity, that after they ask the question, the other person should ask the question back and forth. And if they're sitting at a table and they ask three questions to the right, then they ask three questions to the left. And by the way, I think some of this has to be taught. I think some kids don't know how naturally to shake hands. That,
yeah. Oh, I taught Athena that too.
right, it's a puzzle. You want to make sure it's not too hard, but it's not too soft. And you want to look someone in the eye, excuse me, long enough so you can tell me the color of their iris. I mean, now there are certain kids who just get it or do it, and there are others who, with that, will help them become more socially connected. And
Mm.
if they, by chance, have social anxiety, that they're somewhat pathologically self-conscious, these are the tricks and tools that make it easier. Just think what it's like to go into a party, a cocktail party, and you think to yourself, I don't know anyone, I'm not wearing the right clothes, who's going to talk to me? People who do not have social anxiety, I'm one of them. I walk into the room and look around and say, who am I going to talk to? Do you mean it's a different mindset? But most people are uncomfortable. And by the way, what do? They go get a drink. The
Yeah.
alcohol really works. It doesn't work long term, but in the short term, it takes down your anxiety and you feel a little more comfortable, and you find someone who's wearing similar clothes to you or has similar thoughts as you do, similar career, and you start to chat. Well, if you're a child who has that, how is we as parents can make it better for them without encouraging them to have a drink, so
Yeah.
we want to give them tools in the same way that we read to them. Reading to your kid is a wonderful idea, not necessarily to teach them how to read, but the idea of calmness, listening to a story, asking their parents questions about the story, spending the 5 or 10 minutes to get through the book. That is an important skill. So are these social skills lessons as well.
Yeah. I wonder if you have a child that isn't speaking yet and your friends' kids are speaking. What do you do?
Well, I think there's a level of when we should be worried, right? Um, typical children, typical, uh, have their first steps by the age of 1. They have their first words by the age of 2. By the time they are 2, in fact, we expect them to have 100 words. By the time they're 3, we expect them to have 1,000 words. In fact, the acceleration of language development between 2 and 3 during that 1 year is going to be the most dramatic acceleration for your entire life. You're not going to have, thousands of new words at 22 till the age of 23. Do you mean that just doesn't happen? However, development is not always linear. There's spurts. But if a child is at 2 and doesn't have any language and has no way of communicating, so they may not pronounce the words correctly or they might not be articulate, but they're able to communicate with you, that's good. But if you see that they're just unable to socially join, now what do I mean by that? The next time you're on the phone, notice if you're going like this while you're talking on the phone. No one sees you shaking your head, but you're socially joining with the person on their other end. Maria is socially joining with me right now by shaking her head up and down.
Mhm.
We do it naturally. Kids who are on the spectrum, kids who have autism spectrum disorder, lack that ability to socially join. So they're not good at looking at your eyes. Their language may be very delayed. And those are warning signs. That's when, by the way, I would go to see a pediatrician or see a developmental psychologist to say, do I have something to worry about?
Yeah.
Because my friends' kids have 100 words or 1,000 words, and my son or daughter is really having a lot of trouble and also has trouble connecting, looking me in the eye, letting me hug them, showing me some reciprocity. And that worries me. And the reason why you do that early versus late is that the earlier you get to, the brain is developing. Remember, I talked about 24. You have the best prognosis for all of these conditions if you get to it early. Just think of it as a rash. That a rash that quickly gets taken care of doesn't become infected, doesn't become a big deal. All of these things, if we're open-minded and we're not worried about the implications or the guilt or the shame, and we say we're more concerned about our child, I'm going to check this out. And the worst thing that happened is that I wasted some time and I was told this is normal development and things will be fine. Don't hesitate if you have a concern. I trust mothers more, frankly, more than dads, because moms traditionally spend more hours with their kid. If a mom has a concern, she should really lean in. Go to childmind.org and get more information. Go to your pediatrician. Ask more questions. If you're still not satisfied, go see a mental health professional to get more information.
Okay. So going back to screen time, how should parents navigate that? For me, when I go places with Athena, my first thing I tell everybody is she doesn't eat sugar, she doesn't eat processed food, and she doesn't do any screens. So people shut TVs off. By the way, we're a family, we had TVs in every house. They never go on. Never.
Right.
We never watch anything because we don't want her to watch. But I kind of just let everybody know like this is how we kind of do things.
And by the way, are they shocked? They are accepting of your decision on how
Mhm.
to parent and usually very respectful of that. So
Yes.
even if they disagree during the time you're with them, and by the way, I had an interaction with my grandson whose name is Jackson, and I wanted to show him a little video about Jackson Pollock, the artist who did those drip paintings. There's a
Mhm.
great little video, and he's not using a paintbrush, he's dropping. And my grandson said, I'm not allowed, because I was going to show him on my iPhone. He said, Grandpa, I'm not allowed to look at screens. So
No, he
he
didn't.
did. He was 6 years old. I'm not allowed to look at screens.
Oh
So,
my
so
gosh.
I said, you know what? I'm ready to talk to your dad and mom about this later. This is only 1 minute. Grandpa rules. I'm in the house. You could
I'm
just
dead.
quickly look at this. And he looked at it, but you could tell it made him uncomfortable because his mom and dad made it very clear that screens are not good for him. And
Mhm.
I think that, whether I was right or wrong, that my son forgave me and my daughter-in-law forgave me and said, I got it. But in general, no TV, don't let him look at the laptop. If he's going to watch a movie, we should know when he's watching the movie, what is he watching? And it's a big deal. Do you mean it's not
Yeah.
just a babysitter?
Hey, Heal Squad. We have been on quite the journey together, and we're hearing from so many of you just how much this show is helping you heal and get better, and it makes us feel so good. We love, love, love it, and we just ask that you don't keep it to yourself. Spread the message and share the show or your favorite episode with your friends. And if you want to help us even more, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at Heal Squad. You can also DM us anytime because we love connecting with you. And finally, you can also join us on Patreon for our monthly live heal events with world-class healers and ad-free episodes exclusive only to Patreon and our Super Heal Squad for as little as $10 a month. So go to patreon.com/Heal Squad to join. Getting better isn't easy, friends, but as I say all the time, it's a whole lot easier if we can do it together. We love you all so much, and we love doing this thing called life with you.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or mariamenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.